We are back on the Spin Room. Let's head to the States as the government shutdown is almost 3 weeks old with no end in sight. A day before President Trump stormed out of a meeting with Democratic leaders Wednesday, claiming it was a total waste of time and threatening to declare a national emergency, a Politico Morning Consult poll showed that nearly half of voters, 47%, say he is mostly to blame for the shutdown, but just a third, 33%, blame Democrats in Congress. This morning, the president tweeted his refute of Chuck Schumer's depiction of him throwing a temper tantrum during the meeting, referring to him by his favorite nickname, Crying Chuck. And just a moment ago, outside the White House, the president put his foot down and said he is seriously considering declaring a national emergency. I'm very happy to be joined right now by U.S. columnist for The Guardian, Richard Wolff, and member of the National Advisory Board of Trump 2020, Mica Mosbacher. It's great to see you both back on the Spin Room. Mica, I want to start with you with these poll numbers that I just mentioned. They're not going to make the president happy, are they? I mean, or does he even care about these numbers?
No, he does not care about poll numbers. They were completely wrong during the election cycle. What we do care about is that President Trump has kept his campaign promises so far. The wall was a central promise during the campaign, and the base is sticking with him and encouraging him to hold strong. I'm from Texas. I understand what I think a lot of Americans don't understand is that we have 1,200 miles just along the southern border of Texas and Mexico alone. We've got over 60,000 illegals attempting to come in. What's different now is that we have family units that are coming in rather than just single males. Our detention centers are strained to the limit. We need more judges to help with those individuals seeking asylum. A wall is a one-time expense, and last year at this time, there was a $25 billion bill on the table, which the Democrats supported. President Trump has shown that he is willing to compromise, but time and time again, Speaker Pelosi and Chuck Schumer refused to come forward with any sort of compromise, which could be a win-win. They could provide a pathway for the 1.8 million DACA workers in this country, which would give them a win. So this impasse will be solved because I feel President Trump will use as a last resort a national emergency
Richard,
to build this wall.
Richard, your reaction
but it will get done.
Go ahead, Richard.
Is there a question?
No, I just wanted to react to
Should we get back to reality for a second? Let's get back to reality. You know, sure. Campaign promise from President Trump very clearly stated at every single campaign rally and on his website was that Mexico would pay for this wall. On the campaign website, it said there would be a one-off payment of up to $5 billion from Mexico. What happened to that promise? But, you know, even if you set that aside, living in Texas, being an expert on this, Mica should know that the border crossings are actually nowhere near the peak that they were in the 2000s under President Bush. Children crossings, underage crossings is nowhere near the peak that it was under President Obama. So, yes, this is about President Trump's promises, and mostly it's about him looking extremely foolish. He couldn't get this funding through a Republican-dominated Congress. He's not going to get it through a Democratic-controlled House.
Okay, you know, Mica, I want to ask you this. As Trump likes to keep his opponents off balance, but it doesn't look like his playbook is really working, does it?
Well, the Democrats refuse to negotiate in good faith. They won't sit down, they won't budge, they won't compromise. They won't even put an alternate proposal on the table. And to the fact that President Trump did say today regarding Mexico that they would be paying for the wall indirectly through the trade deal, let's look at this. It's in Mexico's best interest to work with the United States. Drug cartels are controlling certain states in Mexico. They have partnered with the United States and even offered those migrants seeking asylum work opportunities there in Mexico. The wall is not the end-all, be-all. First of all, technology and drones can help as well, but that's not a way to help funnel people through proper ports of entry. They're slipping in where there's no manpower whatsoever along the border. And it really is a crisis in this country.
I want to let Richard weigh in on this. It looks like he wanted to react, Richard.
Well, for a start, he never said indirectly Mexico. He said would pay. He said Mexico would pay. His website said Mexico would pay. There was no indirect about it. Look, there are just so many lies that are spewing forth from the Trump camp. I'd just like to root us in some reality here. Most of the undocumented immigrants that come into this country come through legal ports of entry, and they take things called planes. Planes fly over walls. So let's just be realistic about the immigrant situation, the undocumented situation in this country. It is nowhere near the peak levels it has been in recent memory. There have been plenty of compromises put on the table, including ones voted on by Republicans in the last Congress. So saying that Democrats haven't put forward a compromise isn't true. Republicans put through a compromise. It's this president who said very clearly in front of the cameras that he wanted to close the government over this issue. He's the one who doesn't want to compromise, and at some point he's just going to have to face reality, because reality hurts in this case. He's not going to get this funding through the Democrats in the House. He may try and use illegal measures by claiming a national security crisis, but other presidents will do the same, and I'm sure Mica will be upset with them too.
Okay, let's talk about the federal workers. As the shutdown is getting real for hundreds of thousands of federal employees who won't get their paychecks, here's what Trump and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and the national president of the AFL-CIO, the largest federation of unions in the United States, David Cox, had to say.
They're all going to get the money, and I think they're going to be happy. And I will tell you, and I say it often, many of those people that you're talking about, so humanly the way you express it, but many of those people that you talk about are on my side.
The people behind me represent the real human collateral damage of President Trump's temper tantrum.
We oppose being held hostage. We oppose being collateral damage. We oppose the use of extortion instead of reasoned debate.
And let's talk about the damages as well. Estimates from Trump's chief economist pegged the cost of the overall U.S. economy at about $1.2 billion for each week that the shutdown persists. And some of the main sectors to be hurt are cybersecurity, aviation, national parks and museums, real estate, farmers, defense industry, small businesses, and more. It's a lot of money and a lot of people. And as we see more images and sound bites of people really suffering from this, Mica, what effect is it going to have, Mica?
Well, first of all, it's partly on the Dems. They were willing to compromise a year ago, that's true, but they have not been willing to negotiate in good faith in the last several weeks, including the last 20 days. It is hurting federal workers who do need a paycheck, and beginning tomorrow, many will not receive one. However, it is important that the Dems work with President Trump, acknowledge what President Obama did in 2014, that there is a crisis on the border. 90% of the drugs that are coming into the United States are coming in from the southern border. Those aren't my statistics. That's not the White House statistics. That's Customs and Border Patrol statistics. Mark Morgan, who was Chief Border Patrol president under Obama, supports the wall. If we listen to the experts, they feel there's an important first step toward securing the border.
Okay, Richard, just one last response. We have 1 minute left. Do you think the images of these people not getting their paychecks anymore, how is that going to change the situation?
Oh, it's terrible. These are poorly paid government workers. If you think there's a national crisis, then the last thing you do is actually put workers on furlough who have to deal with that crisis. This is no way to deal with any situation, not policy, not a crisis. And look, if you really want to deal with immigration, and there are many issues around immigration and border security, then deal with that. But don't hold the whole government hostage. This president is shooting himself in the foot, and he's holding the wrong people to blame and using them as human pawns. It's not a good look for him, and it won't last.
Okay, Richard Wolff and Mica Mosbacher, thank you very much for coming on the Spin Room. Great having you on the show. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.